In the 1970s, overpopulation was seen as a roadblock to China's economic development. Rapid growth had put a substantial strain on the government's ability to meet the needs of its people. Since then, China has been actively trying to curb its population growth by allowing families to have only one child.
The government asks people to contribute so that they can benefit the future generation.
China's measures, which included forced abortion, were considered coercive by many when the one-child policy first began in 1979.
In the beginning, if you have one child, you should have the IUD. If you have the second child, you should have the sterilization.
因为中国占世界人口的20%，所以做好。
China's population accounts for 20% of the world's population. In a sense, if we solve the problem of overpopulation, we are solving the world's problem.
In the decade since the controversial policy was put into place, China's leaders claim there have been 400 million fewer births. Authorities say this has eased the burden on natural resources. But it has also increased its people's expectations and living standards.
In my mother's generation, their mainly work is housework and raising the children. But for our generation, most of us go outside. We want to explore our potential. Nowadays, we have so many things to deal with, not only to deal with children, but also to deal with my own life. If I have so many children, on the one hand, they will not get enough care, and on the other hand, I cannot enjoy my life.
This appetite for a better life has created a new challenge for China, a nation now choking on its own success. China is in the midst of an economic boom. Its landscape is drastically changing as the past is quite literally bulldozed over to make way for new cities. An army of cranes juts into a smog-filled sky, while jackhammers pummel the ground below. China is racing to catch up to the developed world. The consequences of this leap forward are everywhere. Forests are reduced to stumps. Coal pollution fouls the air, and once mighty rivers no longer reach the sea. This is the famed Marco Polo Bridge, which for 800 years has offered passage over the broad Yongding River. But Beijing's so-called Mother River has been running dry for more than a decade.
Because of industry, agriculture, and people's living, the water level was dropping significantly.
Now, the only water under the bridge has been pumped in, trapped between giant man-made berms. It's an illusion for tourists who still flock here to see what Marco Polo in the 12th century described as a very fine stone bridge, so fine indeed that it has few equals in the world. Water shortages plague much of North China, especially its grain-producing region. The shortages affect farmers like Lu Kuisheng, who has had to adapt his techniques as water becomes scarce.
You can have a look at the fields in this area. You can really tell there's a drought here. The reason why is because we all drill underground water. If we depend on God, on the weather, then we have nothing.
Realizing their natural resources are not infinite, China's challenge is no longer to conquer nature, but to protect it. the government has instituted programs meant to reverse the damage already done to the environment. These farmers in the headwaters of the Yangtze River participate in a program that pays them to forego planting seasonal food crops and instead to grow trees.
Here are all her land. And these are the trees she grows. She got the seeds from the States.
In the past, steep hillsides left barren by clear-cutting have led to devastating floods. China's forest replanting efforts can help avert these disasters by protecting against soil erosion. Despite these efforts to protect the environment and slow population growth, China's next generation is poised to have an even bigger environmental impact.
Dear passengers, we are now at Longyang Road Station. Please don't forget your belongings. Thank you.
With living standards on the rise, China's middle class is expected to double in the next decade. This means that millions of people will be living and consuming in a way they once could not afford.
China has 4.5 times the US population. It only uses a quarter of US energy and material per capita. If China were able to reach US levels of consumption, China alone would consume all of the current economic and ecological output of planet Earth.
China wants to pursue the same path as other industrialized nations, scouring the globe for natural resources and accepting pollution as the price of prosperity. However, the difference with China is its sheer size of demand, which makes this nation's environmental issues the world's issues.